Today we've got a great story of maliciously complying with a creep. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, you want to deny my heritage? Back in 2012, I worked in a call center for one of the major cellular phone companies, the Magenta one. It was midsummer and the AC was struggling to keep the building cool. I'm a big dude, 6'5", 300, built like an NFL lineman. I run hot, always have. I had a fan at my desk, but I was told we couldn't have fan or a heater at our desk. Okay, cool. Our handbook said, men must wear pants or slacks, collar shirts, and no open-toe shoes. The next day, I show up in a kilt, dress socks, and shoes and button-down collar shirts. Before I get to my desk, my manager stops me and tells me I can't wear that. I look at her and ask why. This is part of my heritage. In fact, it is proper business attire. Before she said anything else, I asked to go and speak with HR. The HR rep is awesome in every way. When we walk into her office, she looks at my kilt and says, "Nice kilt, it looks great. How can I help?" The manager says, "I need to write him up for not wearing pants." The HR reps look at me and smiles and thanks me for coming to her and that I'm to go back to my desk. I do not know what was said, but I got an apology from that manager and was never bothered about my kilt again. That manager had to know that it was over the second they walked into the HR office and they said, "Nice kilt, looks great." If I was that manager and I was on my power trip walking and marching OP down there to the HR's office and I hear that upon walking inside, I would fumble for some kind of excuse and be like, "Never mind, let's go back to work." Savvy Sillybug commented, "Not allowing a fan is insane. Not allowing a heater is at least understandable. They take a lot of power, they can melt plastic. You're drawing way more than your average office PC. Like, yes, you want to be warm, but it's understandable that they wouldn't want you to do that. It causes electrical issues. But a fan? That's what, 30 watts? Who the freak would deny that?" The Broken Ape replied, "Try dealing with a new manager that gave the 'it draws power' excuse." We had one guy who also had odd jobs as a contractor and had a fan that used battery packs he would bring in. The manager had actually tried to go talk with HR about that using the same "it draws power" excuse and couldn't understand why HR laughed at him. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy crazy stories of malicious compliance, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our next story is clock in and out according to your contract. Sure thing, boss. Reading a post today about some absurd rule bosses made reminded me of a jerk of a manager I used to work with. Not actually report to. I used to work in an office in a training department. My manager was super chill and she didn't care much about my schedule and hours I was doing, as long as I did the hours my contract said and didn't take a mick. I used to come in at around 7:30 a.m. every day. I didn't start until 8 a.m., but I would come in, say hello to a few people, make myself a cup of tea, maybe have a quick chat with someone. I would then start working at around 7:50 a.m., still 10 minutes before my start time. I should finish work at 4:30 p.m., but quite often I would stay until 4:45 p.m., or sometimes go home at 4 p.m., but the following day I would stay longer, so my hours in a working week would still add to what they were supposed to. My awesome manager went on maternity leave, and they gave us some jerk wannabe manager who hasn't had a clue about us or our job. Since my manager was away, we all had to report to the jerk. She hated us. For some weird reason, she hated our department and everyone in it. Never said why though. Very quickly, she realized I was doing weird hours and pulled me into the office. She started saying all this crap about how I'm stealing company's time and money, how I'm unprofessional, and how she's going to put her foot down and make me work properly, whatever that means. I tried to listen to her and asked her questions, but she started to say that one more word and you are out. Okay, cool. You are a jerk. Great. So to clarify, I ask, does that mean I have to start at 8 a.m. and finish at 4:30 p.m. every day? She rolled her eyes, looked at me like I'm stupid and says, "It's not that hard. Your contracted hours is what I want to see on your timesheet. Not this nonsense you've been doing." Okay, fine. See, I'm petty. Very petty. And I don't like jerks. So I go home and sleep like a baby, knowing I will mess her up so much she will start losing her mind. Next day, I come to work and wait by the clock-in machine to clock in, bang on 8 a.m. Then I work my normal day, and then I go back to the clock-in machine and wait to clock out exactly at 4:30 p.m. I'm sure you already know where this is going. But wait, there is more. My super friendly fellow coworkers realized very quickly what I was doing and decided to do the same. There was 10 of us in a team, and we all gathered at the clock machine before and after the shift to clock in and out exactly at 8 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. The jerk manager didn't realize for a while what was going on until she put a meeting in place at 4 p.m. Well, 4 of us were in that meeting. Comes 4:25 p.m. and all 4 of us get up while she's talking and run out to our desks. We quickly gather our stuff and run to the clock-in machine. Then, 1 to 2 minutes later, we all clock out and go home. She didn't even have the time to ask what we were doing. The next day, she sends us an invite for 4:30 p.m. and it gets rejected by everyone on my team. She sends a nasty email to all of us who rejected that will be written up for insubordination. We forward the email to HR and ask for a meeting. Meeting happens. The HR lady listens to us, eyes wide open, and then laughs, shakes her head, and says, "Leave it with me." We go about our day and then all clock out at exactly 4:30 p.m. The next day, jerk manager is nowhere to be seen. HR lady sends an email to us asking to come see her at 2 p.m. There, we're informed that jerk manager will no longer oversee our department. Actually, she'll no longer work for the company due to objectives not aligning anymore with the business. Whatever that means. Gossip has it that jerk manager was always biting more than she could chew and caused issues across a few departments. She was moved around because second chances. Well, we went back to our own schedules. When our manager came back from maternity leave and was told what happened, she laughed and said she raised us well. See, the problem here is, I don't understand what the jerk manager expected. Surely that jerk manager would have known that these people's checkout time is 4:30 p.m. Nobody's gonna stick around at 4:30 p.m. clock out time for a meeting. Not unless like their job depended on it. If you want to give me like an hour's overtime to attend that meeting, then sure. Margie Usana commented, "I was a manager for a few years. One thing I learned, I was afraid I would have to know everything, solve every problem. I had employees who would come to my office and describe a thorny problem with administering a contract. I would have no idea how to advise them without having studied the contract. I said, 'What do you think?' And they would outline the perfect solution. That job taught me that a team is a lot smarter than one person, especially a manager." Our next story is, mow your lawn wet? Okay, enjoy the look when it dries. I had a pretty successful lawn mowing hustle in high school with enough regulars to have a decent income. Sometimes it just rains every inconvenient day and lawns get longer and longer. Most customers understood that they needed to be patient and wait until it's dry enough to mow. But not this one guy. He was on the cutting edge of impatience, and in a moment of dullness, he insisted I come in deal with this because it was too long, even though it had continued to rain even on the same day. I told him this is not going to go well, but he insisted. So I got out there and did the best I could, with wet, soggy grass clumping up all over the place. If you know anything about this, you know that mowing thick, wet grass with a push mower tends to just lay the grass over and not really cut it. So you can imagine what it looked like after 2 dry days. The house was on a busy corner of the neighborhood, so until I could get to it a week later, it looked like a troop of drunken monkeys had attacked his lawn with scissors. It looked much worse than if he had just waited until it was dry. The only thing I felt bad about was that everyone knew that that was my work. So I made sure to make it look super nice as soon as I could do it properly. You know, from my experience, I thought this was going to go the route of OP was there all day and got paid so many hours or something. In my experience, when the grass is wet, especially if it's like overgrown or long, it's kind of just prone to choking out the lawnmower over and over and over. I wouldn't have even thought that the problem would be that it wouldn't do a good enough job. I would have thought that it just wouldn't have been possible, at least not in a reasonable amount of time. I Am Yo Daddy commented, "It also takes longer and is harder on equipment to cut wet grass. Sounds like this guy got one over on you if you did extra work while also tarnishing your reputation." OP responded, "I mean, yes, but I was about 15 years old, so not too bright, you know." Our next story is coworkers and management got what they asked for because it's in the agreement. I'm actually excited to be able to contribute here for once. This is currently taking place in a casino in a province in Canada I work at and is a bit multifaceted, so I will apologize for the long read and there is a TLDR at the end. To start, we're technically government employees. Don't ask me why, but we're also union. Yeah, I am a literal bartender in a restaurant where everyone is a unionized government employee. You can see where this is probably going or what kind of environment this has engendered. So first off, employees, there are 3 full-time bartenders. As a person who has bartended or managed bars off and on for decades, we actually get hosed. Like, I have never made so little money working in the service industry, but we have a pension and benefits and that's pretty choice. We consistently work our butts off while we watch our floor counting their hundreds of dollars at the end of a shift while we only make what happens directly at our bar. The servers are mandated to tip out 2% of drink sales only. Regularly, they ignorantly throw dimes across the table at us and make comments about, "Oh, it was only 50 cents, but I rounded up to $1 because you earned it." Yes, comments like this happen on the regular. The rub is because of the CBA with the union, bartenders are not allowed to serve tables, and the servers consistently remind us of this. Here is where it gets bad. They expect the bartenders to also run their food, clean, and clear their tables and still only tip to the literal penny. This is one aspect. Now, as for management, we have numerous times had conversations with management as our servers constantly abandon their tables, go outside to smoke, hang out on their phones, and generally do the barest of minimums. But because they're not on the floor, we have to be. We are mandated and guaranteed 15-minute breaks twice a shift and one 30-minute, which we never get. This is without mentioning once that management refuses to hire any new bartenders due to budgetary constraints. We've spoken to management numerous times and all we get told is that the servers have the floor and that we can file a grievance with the union. Cue malicious compliance and it's good. So myself and 2 other bartenders sat down with our union reps and hammered out the exact parameters of our jobs, management's duties, and obligations and that of our floor. We got everything highlighted and we now have laminated cardstock behind the bar with the printed and highlighted aspects of our jobs, our job parameters, and our job guarantees. A few weeks ago, we 3 started every shift the same way. Servers would regularly just walk behind the bar to get drinks for themselves or their clients. Sorry, you're not bartenders, you can't come behind the bar. What? Yeah, sorry, it's in the CBA. We can't take tables, you can't serve drinks. We'll get to it as soon as we can. Servers now have to wait on us to pour their drinks, pop, water, beer, or even get them ice. That is step 1. We now officially take our 15s and our 30-minute breaks. As such, any and all drink service stops. Here's the best part. As such, management, who is otherwise completely useless, chatting with friends or hiding in their offices, now have no choice but to come down and man the bar while we do so. They have to make drinks, stock the bar, which we ensure is needing to be done, and put away and polish our glassware. This is important as we have very specific criteria for our house drinks and what type of vessels they get poured in. This has been amusing to watch, but we enjoy our breaks, and I'm catching up on some reading. It's only been a few weeks, but the servers seem to be getting it, and all of a sudden, there are 2 new bartenders in training on the schedule, and 2 more apparently being hired. Maybe this malicious compliance stuff does work. Edit/update, so I need to fill in some gaps here from the comment section. 1. Management runs on partial P&L bonus structures. For those that don't know, that's profit and loss. The less they spend while maintaining a baseline of profitability, the more money they make. This means we regularly run out of glassware, etc. Also, why we're frequently short-staffed. 2. Management is very questionable at this job. I have/had in my past been bar manager at 3 different locations. 2 nightclubs and a speakeasy, and watching my bar run out of things like triple sec, garnish, and vodka, yes, really, is beyond insane to me. 3. The upper management has a very weird nepotism feel to it. Every manager below the GM is a former coworker or friend of the GM from other locations they've worked at, drinking buddies, and generally people with no actual experience in the field. 4. The reviews of this place are atrocious. The only good ones seen recently are fake reviews written by the supervisors hired, the managers hired under fake names, or generally come direct from bar service. I don't mean to dump on the floor or servers because they do work hard, but the bar is the only staff ever on the floor from start to finish and the first point of contact to the door because we regularly do not have a host or hostess. 5. To add, our oldest bartender has been there 7 years and is around 60-ish years old. He holds or has held a supervisory position and was the first and last point of contact for a lot of clients and regulars. We have very similar mindsets and frequently leave the bar to address issues and then try to correct them, above and beyond our scope of duties, which is why the bartenders there are seen so favorably. 6. Again, the floor does work their butts off. I will never be an us versus them person. No serving position is easy, but this venue has a floor staff full of people that regularly walk off for smoke breaks, sit in the back on their phones, and who generally ignore their clients. Because of the nature of the business, the floor on slow nights will make $150 regardless of good service or not, so they're not the most motivated. Case in point is one table who just last night waited almost 20 minutes just to pay their bill because their server was outside smoking and on the phone. 7. This is my first unionized position in the service industry, and in the province of British Columbia, Canada, is governed by the BCGEU, or the BC General Employees Union. I've never been in a position like this, and while being the newest person took some time to rope in the other 2 long-term bartenders to actually do something about the working conditions, all of our new hires behind the bar will be notified of their rights and will not be fed to the wolves. It's not how I or we operate. 8. If this job sucks, it is time to dip. Yes, this is a stop in my life that is currently necessary. I own a business but have a kid, and this job offers me a pension and quality employer-paid benefits. I have 2 years of school left, and while I'm in my early 40s, having the stability for myself and my kid while having their braces and my vision and prescriptions covered is a nice little safety net. You know, my brain immediately went to thinking about the topic of how healthcare is so expensive and so bad that OP would be willing to put up with such a terrible job just to have good coverage. But then I also realized this takes place in Canada. And suddenly I realized I have no idea how the Canadian healthcare system actually works. Does Canada also believe that teeth and eyes are not essential parts that should be covered by most insurance plans? 'Cause I sure love that part in America. Easy Easy commented, your union agreement on the bar side freaking sucks if the agreement has bar staff being bussers and food runners for 2% of drink sales. That's just someone's poor understanding which has been included somehow in your CBA. This needs to change immediately or during the next collective bargaining period. Your lead should be revising, creating, or amending verbiage as we speak to ensure changes are made. Our next story is, important calculation due? Sorry, no work from home allowed. I'm currently in my malicious compliance phase at work right now. I got ripped a new one last week because I needed to work from home in order to get some urgent stuff done for a conference I needed to attend the following week. I was explicitly told that I could not work from home without approval, and I was told that I signed a policy about it. I responded that my job requires me to work from home all the time, to which they replied, "You signed the policy." So now, after I leave the office, I turn off my work-issued cell phone and never look at it on the weekends. I am a salaried employee, but I'm not going to beg my employer to allow me to work from home. This weekend, I got a call on my personal cell from one of the other managers about approving some billing rates that were due. I told her that I wasn't allowed to work from home, and I'll get to it on Monday whenever I have the opportunity. Everything will be late, but I signed the policy. It literally would have cost them nothing to just let me do my dang job. I already get paid a fixed rate, but if they want to play stupid games, they can win stupid prizes. Edit, so a number of comments asking about why I would even bother to work from home after hours. Here's my take. My employer is not paying me to sit in an office for 40 hours a week, they're paying me to do a relatively specialized job. Sometimes I do 30 hours a week, sometimes 40, sometimes more. Whatever it takes to do the job, it has been extremely flexible for me in the past and has allowed me family balance, work, and a few volunteer activities. This isn't really an anti-work thing, more of an anti-this particular person on a power trip. Update, Monday came and went and not a peep from anyone about the rates getting out. fixed a couple of bugs, but I think the other manager edited the PDF reports to get them out the door. Also, the deadline for it was pushed back a week. So everyone survived, but I have made some changes. Change number 1, I'm no longer taking my work cell home with me. It is freeing and anxiety-inducing at the same time after doing so for so long. Change number 2, I've informed any staff that may need to contact me that I won't be doing anything work-related once I walk out of the office. Change number 3, I'm updating my resume today. It's time to leave. Thanks to everyone for their feedback. Wish you all the best. Update 2, received a new job offer, waiting for the official offer letter before putting in my notice. Good luck to everyone out there in this struggle economy. I mean, I think the bottom line here is, was OP being compensated for working from home? As long as OP's like on call or whatever, or they're getting like some kind of rate, then yeah, why not? That said, when they're going to give you crap for working from home, but then also expect you to work from home, then yeah, that's when you start looking for a new job, because if the company is doing that, clearly there must be other extreme cracks in the foundation. Trashed LeBlanc commented, "For me, I'd have that policy printed, highlighted, and available on my desk, on my personal company-used cell phone, and on any and all computers I might use for work." Oh, you now want me to work from home? Cool. I signed the policy though. Oh, you want to amend it now? Okay, let's talk about proper compensation too for me working outside of office hours. Brilliant, malicious compliance. Love it. OP responded commenting, "I texted my entire team something along the lines of, I know this is against who you are and what you do, but you are not to respond to any issues outside of work hours." That was hard because my team has earned a reputation for going above and beyond, and now I'm handicapping them. My advice to them was that bad policy deserves bad consequences. My number 1 rule was always make sure employees get paid, and now innocent people pay the price for other people's bull. Our next story is, you're going to be a creep to me? I'd like to see you try. This happened a while ago, so this is an approximation of what happened. Back when I was in middle school, there was this boy, we'll call him Gabe, who bothered girl after girl. He would harass them and follow them around. He would only relent after he was reported, then on to the next victim. Then he moved on to me. He made me very uncomfortable. One day, however, I was talking to my friend who was on her period about cramps and stuff like that. He shouted from another table, "Ew, none of that girl crap. Guys don't want to hear that stuff." At the time, we were just annoyed, but little did I know this would be the key to my freedom. He approached me during PE the next week and said something along the lines of, "Don't keep secrets from me. I want to hear all of your little sins." Ew. I was having my period that day and the cramps were killing me, so I was anything but patient. It hit me in a cramped-fueled stroke of genius. Great, I've been looking for someone to talk to. Blood has been leaking from my pelvic area, and God is it terrible. They need to stock more pads here. There were only tampons and I got blood on my hands. Want a smell? I don't think the soap has washed the smell off. He looked horrified. He mumbled something about it being a joke and he stumbled off. As far as I know, he did not try to bother girls again. You know, in this situation, I'm just glad that there was something that OP could weaponize to get this guy to stop creeping around them. You know, you would hope that reporting them and the people actually in charge would have done something about this kid creeping on girls in the school. That said, it's just really fortunate that he had this Achilles heel and it wasn't a situation where they were like, "Ooh, yes, let me smell." I mean, imagine if it went down that route. Throwaway 47138 commented, "I, a guy, kind of had the opposite situation happen to me. I was sitting in the senior lounge reading a book when some girls came in. After a bit, they started talking about period stuff, having somehow forgotten I was sitting there. My mom totally normalized periods for me growing up, so it didn't bother me and I just ignored it. Eventually, they moved on to another topic which I actually cared about, and so I spoke up. At which point, they were all like, 'Where did you come from?' They were rather embarrassed when I pointed out that I'd been there the whole time, but I just shrugged and went back to me book." Alaska guy in DK commented, "Yo, radioactive rocks theory in full effect." So most people only know vaguely about the gray rock theory, which is basically giving any nosy or overbearing observer tons of bland information to discourage further nosiness or other micromanagement kind of stuff. But a radioactive rocks theory is that you just tell the most graphic and disgusting information you have to make the person so horrified and grossed out they'll back off permanently. Our next story is 30 minutes or 2+ hours, your call. Context: I'm a paramedic that works semi-rural, 1-hour drive to the hospital. We work 12-hour shifts from 6 to 6. Commonly, we would arrive at 5:30 so the off-coming crew could go home earlier after the handover of equipment. Anyway, the 5:30 arrival time was a gentleman's agreement so that the off-coming crew wouldn't have to attend a call-out that would put them over their finish time and potentially breach their 14 hours maximum working time. Local driving laws can't be working for more than 14 hours if your job involves driving. At 14 hours, you must stop driving no matter where you are unless you have a critical patient. Occasionally, a job would come in during that 5:30 to 6 period, which the new shift would take, and then claim the early start as overtime. Standard practice here, normally never a problem. One day, the manager sends out an email stating that no staff should be turning up early and starting work before 6 because it was costing too much in overtime. So that's what we all did. Every single crew, which was 30+ staff, at the peak of winter, which is usually one of the busiest times of the year. It sucked finishing late a fair bit, but making the boss pay us 2+ hours of overtime and giving them the headache of driving us back to the station once we breached 14 hours instead of paying for 30 minutes was great. After 2 months of hemorrhaging money in overtime payments, we get another email. You can now go back to the 5:30 arrangement. You know, it's a fair observation to take a stab and say that some arrangements between staff are being made to just be lazy or make their jobs easier. But as a supervisor or a manager, you really have to apply a keen eye and try to identify, now, are my employees being lazy, or is there a really effective and efficient handoff arrangement going on here that just makes sense for the company and the job as a whole? Nah, they're probably being lazy, let's cut the whole thing off. As Vez commented, you can now go back to the 5:30 arrangement. No, thank you. Glad we have this talk. Anonymous replied, actually, sir, our contract states 6 to 6. We will now need to renegotiate. Our next story is, you want me to provide a good reason for why I want to use my vacation days? Time to trauma dump. So I work in a pretty low-stress job, which makes it absolutely hilarious that my boss demands that whenever we take our paid time off, we give a good reason. Like, dude, why do I need to give you a good reason to take my vacation days? They're mine. I'm entitled to take them to dedicate the time to my new hobby of staring at the ceiling. It ain't none of your business. Well, I'd planned to take a few days off to recharge after a very relatively intense work week. Unfortunately, the boss thought this was a great time to send out a reminder email that if we intend to take time off, we need to provide a reason and have it approved. This was a mistake on his part. I went into his office, head hanging low, and started talking about my dad's cancer, how intensive chemotherapy was. I didn't make myself cry, but I was putting that theater class I took in college to good use. I might even have hit him with, and I'm just so used to seeing my dad as this strong and vulnerable guy, but he's just human, you know? And soon he might be gone. How do you even deal with something like that? Now, by this point, my dad had been cancer-free for years, so this was purely performative, but my boss just looked so uncomfortable, it was great. I wish I could say this caused the boss to send out an email saying that we no longer needed to give a reason for our time off, but no such luck. Instead, I just kept coming up with other traumatic life experiences to justify my vacations. I think my grandma died 3 times these past few years. Poor woman. I may have to come up with something new for when she actually does pass. My boss still gets visibly uncomfortable whenever I come to ask for time off in person instead of via email. It's kind of hilarious to me. Anybody have that situation where you have that person in your contacts that you really don't want to hear from, and when you get that notification and it has their name on it, you feel that kind of like chill in your spine, like, oh God, how long can I get away with just pretending that I didn't get it and not looking at it for a while? I imagine it's a similar feeling for that boss when OP walks in like, hey boss, I've come to you to request more time off. Alas, allow me to explain exactly why I must take this time off. It is once again my dearest grandmother who has perished. Relaxed Neurosis suggested in a comment, I'm going to a rehab center for compulsive necrophilia. Flathouse5529 suggested, well, I can tell you the reason if you really want, but it will kind of make you an accessory. Freebirdie777 commented, if you've used the grandpa died excuse, use the grandma getting married excuse. Or, what is your security clearance? Or, the CEO's wife has been after me about a threesome. Or, because if you don't let me use it, you won't pay me for it at the end of the year. I don't want to have to use my time talking to the labor board and class action lawyers. Or, I'm donating a kidney to the owner's grandchild. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy malicious compliance story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.